Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And as you saw from the title and the thumbnail, today we are going to be doing a subjective video of my own opinion of what the 5 best teams are in the game currently as of late July of 2024. This is a couple months prior to the third anniversary, which will probably introduce some kind of new level of power creep or, gimmick, something that'll be useful. So I wanted to get this video out now, that way when we come back and return to it, we can see just exactly how much the third anniversary has impacted, but still giving a few months in between before that as well. So I do, and we do have some criteria that I'm going to write down. So ease of use. How easy is it to use the team? How easy is it to understand what you need to do and what kind of other units you need to bring is going to be number one. Number two, all game event viability. How strong is it, not only in Jubilee, because every Jubilee is tailored for every meta, so that's not really fair, but how good is it in Crucible? How good is it in the Old Tempered Edges? How good is it in Valor Cup or Tower of Isis? We're going to take the entire game, and some stages don't like certain colors. Okay. Some stages don't like certain powers. Okay. These are all things we have to keep in mind when doing this. Number three is accessibility. How easily accessible is this team? Meaning, how often has it come around, right? If it's only been here once and never again, it's not going to look very good. If it's being shoved down our throats and people have had many opportunities to get it, then that's a little bit better for you, because it's better to have a team full of units you can use rather than praying and hoping for a team that will probably never come back. Now, it only really applies to collab units, but there are a few outliers as well. Individual unit strength. So going into the team itself, how strong is each individual unit, with their skills? How useful are they outside of their team? Things of that nature. And number five is, how good is the team if you bring other support characters, right? Because, let's be honest, with this game, anything can be a damaging character if you bring enough support. If you completely wipe the team away as it was meant to be run when it came out during whatever specific month, and you just slam 4 other gigantic support units, yeah, even Earth Trainee is going to do a fuck ton of damage, okay? But we have to keep that in mind. That's why it's the 5th slot. But we are going to be looking at teams as they were run with the full meta, first and foremost. So if we're going to be looking at Primal Demon, we're going to be looking at, Primal Demon Protector Violet, Blanc, Jean, Misery, Diablo. Like, these are the things. I'm not going to just be doing, Exalted Champion, but, only the hero, or only Milliman guy, and the 3 other slots are open. Like, that's not really what I want to do. I'm trying to be as objective as possible in this very subjective video. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, this is not an end-all, be-all. You are very much welcome to have your own opinions, and please let me know in the comments if you agree with this list, or, what team you would put above everything. But I will give as best explanation as I could, and this video could be kind of long because we're already at 4 minutes and I've only done the intro. So I will have timestamps to each step, each tier, but I won't name them. So let's get started. Alright, so starting off this list will be an honorable mention to a team that had a lot of impact and still is pretty good to this day. It has been power crept because it's been a long time since they came out. But the honorable mention is going to go to the Light 3.0 team led by Princess Protector Priestess Shuna. And this team looked like this when it came out. It came out for New Year's of 2023. 2 months before EX units and forces were a thing, and it was the last non-EX stacking meta, and it's still to this day pretty strong. Now, Shuna is a double stacking protector, meaning she's stacking 2 different effects at once, which was the first time we had ever seen that on a stacking protector. She's got Pierce Power and Stun Strike. Raphael has Pierce and Stun Strike as well. That's a temporary buff. And he's got ult resistance down, and he is still a fairly good unit for support to this day. Now that a lot of things are able to stun. Light Milim is a decent support character. Light resistance down, attack buff, orb changing her own orbs. Light Lumi is very restricted because you can only use her skill once, but it does lower stun resistance down, so you can use that in some stages where it's effective. And then she's got the orb change for greens. And then we've got Soka, free-to-play Soka, who is special converting blues and extending the stun, which not really too much use for that. But when this came out, this was the highest damaging team, and it didn't get outclassed in damage until, 10 months later with Visions of Coleus, because even the Fount of Wisdom team, if you were running a stage that you could stun and you could pierce, this team still outdamaged Fount of Wisdom, right? It may have been on par with Warrior's Mind, but the fact that it's on par with EX metas because of just the raw power of double stacking, Pierce Power, Stun Strike, means that it was very easy to use, and you could still do oodles of boodles of damage while being at least type neutral to everything, right? They're light characters, so they're not type disadvantaged to anything when they're hitting. They're either neutral or they're advantage against dark characters. And this team, if you put maybe an alt swapper on that we have plenty of, runs very efficiently. If you put Blanc in here, it runs great. She's another light magic character. Awesome. You could put any of the other double alt swappers that we have now. It's maybe not the best for all of the game's content, especially Valor Cup or Tower of Isis, but you can, if you use the support slot right here for like rainbow orbs or alt rushing techniques, you can get some kind of burst damage viability out of Raphael. It's just very expensive. Accessibility, these units have been around, they're not EX, so they're very available, and Raphael's given away for free, a couple months ago, so that's pretty good. Individual unit strength, Soka's an old 4-star free-to-play, she's okay, I don't really use her that much. Lumi is kind of restricted, Milim is okay, Raphael is still very good, and Shuna is still very good. And then outside support options, Light Blanc, Visions of Coleus Violet, any other blue orb changer that has some big time buff that will help Raphael out. And there's a lot of options now. So honorable mention goes to the Light 3.0 team. It was very good when it came out. It's still pretty good to this day, and it can still put up reasonable numbers for newer players that maybe don't have full EX teams. The next team, the actual number 5 spot, is going to go to one of the most recent teams, and that is Exalted Champions, led by Velzard. This is the 2.5-year anniversary team. It is fully stacked up of characters, and it is essentially 2 metas in one, because you have a very strong single target damage dealer in Milim, you have a very strong pure AoE character in the hero, steals orbs, makes her own orbs just AoE normals, and she's an AoE alt. And then Veldora is a very, very good free-to-play character. I thought he was a bit restricted when he came out, but he's proven his worth because his 70% green orb buff can offset pretty much any stage at this point. Maybe not the damage nerf that orbs get sometimes, but most stages nerf greens by 80%, and he's buffing by 70%, so you're only getting a 10% loss. It's not super impactful, so he's really, really good now. Light Rimuru, the weakest of the summonable characters, he's just an unfortunate thing, but he is still valuable if you need an alt buffer, or not alt, but attack buffer, and he can alt swap to rainbows one time. Milim, again, single target nuking with the extra alt kind of gimmick thing, and then Exalted Champion Guy is probably one of the most impactful units on this team. Alt rushing, guaranteed synergy and synergy power. It is pretty restricted to what he can do for those characters, but if you build a team around it, he's going to look really good. And then Protector Velzard herself, changing every orb to green, giving the element buff and the Drago effect, and the 30% skill points for the first 5 turns. That's a lot of power right there. But it is 2 units, 2 teams in one. And this team is good for most things. It will clear any kind of burst stage, Valor Cup, Tempered Edge, a lot of the beatdowns you can clear with some variation of this team, with some substitutions. Tower of Isis crumbles underneath this team. I use a wind magic team for my tower runs. I use the hero, and I use Milim, and I use Velzard. So it runs really well. We have proven it can clear some beatdown battles, maybe not every beatdown battle, but it definitely can do it if you have the options. And it's pretty easy to use. You know, you alt rush with Guy, you use Veldor's orb change and green buff, and then you're just running Velzard stacks, you know, left and right. You're pretty much never gonna run out of her. And she changes every orb, not just 3 and 3, but she can change all 5 of the same color. So it's a very easy to run team. It's not super accessible right now because it's fairly new and they've only now come back on a rerun kind of magic banner or something like that, and the 1000 day banner. Like they're in there, but that's the first time, so that's why it kind of drops them down a bit. But overall, this team is good. It's just, you know, Rimuru is not super great. Milim, if you're not looking for a win DPS, she's easily replaceable. I think Velzard and Guy are the two highest priority, with the hero coming in a close third. But if you have an AoE option, I mean, you don't really need her. So number 5, I could hear arguments of pushing this team up, but I personally think that this is the number 5 team in the game. Okay, number 4, the 4th best team in the game according to me, is going to the Visions of Coleus second anniversary team, which is another fully, you know, kitted out team. All 5 slots are taken up by meta characters, unlike, you know, Light, which was not some kind of big anniversary, so they have an extra slot. Visions of Coleus is still one of the best blue stacking teams to this day, as long as you can run it properly. Like, as long as they don't have synergy resistance, like, this team does bonkers damage. So, Lumi stacks attack on everybody, well, all these characters. She gives every unit guaranteed synergy, so you can take advantage of that. And she's, you know, raising your skill cap, giving you the extra points on blues, you know, the things that traditional blue stacking teams do. Coleus Rimuru introduced the Unity Rainbow Orbs, and that brings a lot of viability, not just for long fights, but also short-term fights where you need EX ults quickly. You can finagle your way into getting 6 orbs of, you know, just pure rainbows, and that'll get you a lot of gauge really, really quickly. So you could, in theory, use this in a burst scenario. If you need, like, an AoE character, Dark Rimuru is type neutral, right? And then you've got 3 massively powerful single-target units. VOC Violet, still a fantastic option to this day, almost a year later, right? She came out late October, right? It's, you know, late July now. We're not that far away from Violet being a year old and still one of the best support units in the game. The same goes for Light Blanc. Triple alt swapping, the weakness strike and synergy resistance down, which pairs very well with the guaranteed synergy from Lumi. Triple alt swapping, highly coveted thing. Highly coveted. Only 2 units do it. It's her and it's Overlord Shizu. And they're very, very good units. Jean, you know, the least used summonable option, I think, because she's a damage buffer and a DPS character. If you're running, like, Primal Demons, right, she's a mainstay there because, you know, 170% ult damage plus space resistance down plus her own personal synergy power buff. Like, she's really strong, don't get me wrong. And then Cleash was the free-to-play, and she's kind of a throwaway. You just replace her with someone else that can green orb change, or you don't, and you just you RNG your way into you know, godlyhood. But this team, very easy to use, very, very clearly out damages the Light 3.0 team. But Rimuru with the rainbows makes it easy. Blanc with the triple alt swap makes it easy. This team has been featured on numerous banners now that it's been almost a year, so I'd say it's accessible. It's good for a lot of content, because if you use Rimuru, you can do burst things, and you can do lots of stacking things, right? So you can use it in Tempered Edge, Conquest, Valor Cup. You know, Violet is a mainstay support in Valor Cup. You can use Rimuru, again, with his Rainbows and Valor to rush and get, you know, an EX ult on Nuke on turn 3. It's just a very easy to use but still extremely powerful team. And the fact that, you know, a lot of these characters still have super high value this late into their lifespan, it just goes to show how well they did with the summonable batch of characters here. I mean, outside support options, you know, you could just take her out and replace it with any green orb changer, right? You could put Fount of Wisdom Albus in here. You could put an element buffer. there's a number of units you can do for this fifth slot if you don't like Cleash, which I personally don't. But it's got viability. You can use it in multiple scenarios. It's getting more and more accessible as time goes on. Most of the individual units are strong by themselves and on the team, and this I think is a very, very solid number 4 slot. The number 3, the halfway point of this list, I think the top 3 should be fairly obvious for seasoned players. I think we all know what the number 1 team is, but we're not quite there yet. And for newer players, you're not going to know. Number 2 is going to be a shock to most people. But number 3 is going to go to the New Year's Blessing team of 2024. So we have the honorable mention of New Year's 2023, New Year's of 2024, also a powerhouse team. New Year's Blessing runs through things. It doesn't have to be a stacking stage if you just straight up murderize it in 3 turns. Why is that? Well, because you've got Diablo giving away all the orbs to Rimuru, who then makes all of his orbs rainbows. So you could legitimately have his EX ult at 130 points on turn 3. And you could have enough to nuke with, these 2 characters and maybe a support, or maybe Diablo's, crit debuff. Like, Xion is changing 3 greens and 3 blues to 6 oranges. Oranges, not very favored in the game at all. And all the orange teams follow that same kind of format, so they really don't have, there's a word for it, and I can't think of it, creativity in making different orange teams. But she's also giving all physical characters guaranteed crit, very powerful. Guaranteed synergy, very powerful. Giving you 30 skill points for the first 5 turns, just like Exalted Champion Velzard. Like, you combine all that, changing orbs, double buffing, right? And that's what made Shuna so good, is double buffing, right? And then you've got Rimuru with an attack buff, rainbow orbs, weakness strike. You've got Milim, who may be the runt of the team, but still usable, very usable. She has the future hand of oranges, she's got the synergy power and ult resistance down. And then Shinsha has the single ult swap, good for a burst team. It doesn't need to be more than 1 or 2. And then she's got the crit damage up for physical and ult damage. And then Diablo, like I said, is giving away orbs to Rimuru. It's a very easy team to run, and it'll murder anything burst stage. I don't care if oranges are nerfed. Rainbows don't give a crap about orb nerfs, right? It's just the best of all 3 worlds. And you could have oranges nerfed by 100%. Yeah, it doesn't really matter now, does it? No. So this is a very, very easy to use team. It clears everything, even some stacking stages now with some of the support units you can bring in here, because you can bring, where is she? Commander Shizu. Commander Shizu is going to give Reamer a 100% physical buff and a 70% EX ult damage buff on top of everything else you're getting here. Maybe you don't have enough points for Diablo, but you combine that, and that together, and Rimuru does dumb damage. Stupid damage. And this team is pretty accessible now. They've been featured numerous times. They're currently on the free ticket banner, right? Xion is headlining this right here. Rimuru is here. Like, they're making it more accessible as time goes on. And if you can pull at least Xion and Rimuru, you can sub these 3 units out for more support. They've also had a rerun already, just recently. Like 2 months ago, they had a rerun. So most people were able to get Diablo. Visions of Coleus has not had a rerun. Exalted Champion is way too new to have a rerun. So it's accessible. It's very easy to use. It's got most game viability. Maybe some huge stacking stage, turn 8, like the current beatdown battle for Determination of Prosper. Maybe not the best place for them because they do a lot of damage and you have almost no defense and it's an AoE focus. That's not maybe the best place to bring them. But, man, this is a very dumb, stupid, powerful team, and it can murderize almost everything, and there's a lot of room for support characters to bring in for this 5th slot. So, this is the number 3 team, and I could hear arguments of people pushing it up as well. The number 2 team could be a bit controversial because of the one technicality that it has, because if you look at it, it is the best team in the game, if you are able to run it. And it's going to be the Idol Master collab team led by Idol Rimuru. It looks like this. It's a collab team, which means that if you were not playing when it came out and you don't have these characters, you're shit out of luck. You're never going to get them again. You can get Idol Shuna because she's not technically an Idol unit, right? She's got not an Idol Master thing on. She was the Christmas character. So she has been featured many, many times, actually. She's come back around more than a few. But Rimuru, Mirai, Tsubasa, Shizuka, they're never coming back. But the gimmick with this team is that as long as you are under the Pretty Sparkle Force category, Rimuru, you cannot die. Like, you are literally invincible. So, I mean, look at the Pretty Sparkle category. It's not super huge, right? There's, Dark Milim is good, Bride Shuna is good, the rest of the characters are kind of middling to meh, but Rimuru is doing a 3/3 orb change to 6 greens. Okay, there's your converter covered. And if you need it, you've got Tsubasa to convert as well. He's also stacking 12% magic attack. Okay, that's good. You're a stacking team. He's also passively resetting the frontline character's skill cost by 10 every turn, just like what Maribel does right now, with the Prosper team out. Where is Maribel? Where's that stupid little runt? There she is. Like this one. And also, if you are a Pretty Sparkle unit, every time you use Rimuru, you will be invincible. Like, not like you're gonna guard and you're gonna take less damage. Not like, oh, I'll heal it all back at the end of the turn like Prosper Lumi or something. No, you literally you don't take damage. They hit you and you just kind of stand there and smirk it off like most Dragon Ball Z villains, right? You cannot die. And that is super powerful. Because if you can't die, you can't lose. And it's a stacking team, which means that you have the power to do oodles of boodles of damage, because you've got Mirai's live mode. 2% permanent attack buff every time you send a green orb. So on a optimized turn, you're getting a 12% attack buff because you're sending 6 greens, right? Because Reamer's changing them all to greens, alongside the 12% magic stack that Reamer's doing. Shizuka is a goddess on green teams, stacking weakness strike. Live mode, so that's another 12% right there. Stacking alt resistance down on the enemy. And her weakness strike skill is a 35% heal. So even if you do randomly take damage on a turn maybe that you can't use Rimuru, you got a healer built in. Idol Shuna, she's been power crept out, but she still has a double alt swap. She's got guaranteed synergy, and she's got synergy power for a lot of the characters. So, I mean, she's not a super awesome unit nowadays, but she's certainly not a shit unit either. And Tsubasa being a free-to-play character, she's a special converter for greens. She's got an attack buff that stacks up to 60% every time you get hit by an alt. So, and then this last slot, you could put free-to-play Isis, you could put free-to-play, Exalted Champion Veldora for the massive green buff. You could put Visions of Coleus Violet, you can put Octogram Lumi. Like, there are so many options you can use, and you literally can stack to the moon with Mirai and Shizuka and Rimuru and never die. And the only reason this team isn't number 1 is because it's a collab and no one can get it anymore. That's the only reason. And it's a pretty hefty debuff to them as far as their ranking, because otherwise they would easily clear number 1. Because even the number 1 team, you can die. You can take damage. This team can't do it. And with Veldora especially, green nerfs in stages don't really mean anything anymore. So, I mean, is Mirai the strongest character outside of her meta? Certainly not. Is Idol Shuna? No. Is Shizuka? Yeah. Oh yeah. They haven't put out a lot of green stacking teams because they're afraid of this Shizuka. That is my opinion. That's what I believe. And I think it's a valid opinion. Because you put her on the Overlord team and she does work on a stacking green team that's not Idol Rimuru. And Overlord Rimuru resets her, so she's always at minimum cost most of the time. So this team easily clears number 2, could be number 1. I could hear arguments if you don't really care about the conditional accessibility if you have them. But if you don't have them, you're never going to get them. So that's a pretty hefty, unfortunate circumstance. But it can clear, right? As long as you can't die, it'll clear anything. It'll clear a stacking stage. It'll clear Tempered Edge. It'll clear Valor Cup, because they can't hurt you. They can't hurt you. It'll clear Tower of Isis. They can't kill you. It'll clear most beatdown battles. They can't hurt you. They have kind of gone in a way to nerf the invincibility by having, enemies have skill effects that remove statuses like the invincibility stuff, and that has been the way to kind of take away the value of this team, but it's still very, very good. And most stages only do it to like one character, so not a super big deal. It's a very good team, and it's very unfortunate if you were not around to get it. And the final team, shock surprise to literally nobody who has even a modicum of knowledge about this game, it's the Vengeance meta. Holy shit, who would have seen that coming from 20,000 miles away? Vengeance. Minus Octagram Guy. He's definitely a unit you can put, but Vengeance. Oh, see, I've already put some substitutions on there because it's so strong. Hold on. Okay, we're back. This is the Vengeance team. Velzard. God. Raphael. God. Veldora and Shuna. Unfortunately, not that great. Yom. Free-to-play God. Alright? The fact that we have two actual shit characters on this team, and it means actually nothing to this team, is, I think, just testament to how strong Yom, Raphael, and Velzard are. I had all these characters removed and a whole bunch of free-to-play characters in here because you legitimately do not need Veldora. You do not need Shuna. For people that don't know what the Vengeance team does, I will put a recording of some gameplay up right here, and I will just show you what happens when you use Vengeance efficiently. But I'm going to talk over it. So, Velzard gives you 300% skill point gain on greens. Pretty much guarantees that 4 green orbs get you 100 points. She also resets all skills across the board. Doesn't matter if you're up front or you're in the back, you're reset. Awesome. That's incredible. And she's got a 3-turn Vengeance counterattack, which means every time that you get hit, the enemy gets a stack of Vengeance. And if they have, if you have 3 enemies and they all AoE you, that's 9 stacks of Vengeance right there, not including follow-up attacks or counter attacks that, they may hit you with. All right? Raphael, one of the best defensive gods in the game, gives you guaranteed guard, puts 3 Vengeance stacks on, seals the enemy's attack, crit, and pierce, and gives you an all-element resistance for 2 turns. That's 4 unit kits in 1 unit. It's crazy. Veldora, he stacks ult damage, he does have Vengeance, and he has Weakness Strike. This is a defensive team, right? This is a turtle team, and all the characters have defensive-focused stats, which means that they don't hit very hard, and they're not meant to hit hard. They're meant to kill you by giant lightning bolts from the fucking sky. So having Weakness Strike and extra ult damage means absolutely nothing. So get him, remove him from the team. He's terrible. Shuna is the quote-unquote DPS character. She's got a stat swap, she's got an ult rush, she's got wind attack. That's cool and everything. Again, I'm not concerned about actual unit damage with this team. I care about giant lightning bolts. Which means that we have 3 characters. Free-to-play Yom, Orb Changer, Vengeance. There's a reason why he hasn't been rerun ever, and it's because they don't want to just give away Yom and clear the entire fucking game with him. This team will clear everything. Because if you have Raphael, you don't even need Yom. You don't need Yom. If you have Raphael and Velzard, you will win 99.9% of all stages. And the only reason it's not 100 is because, like the idols, they have introduced the ability to negate the Vengeance and the guard and everything that we can put on us. Or they can cleanse the Vengeance off of them. So that's the reason why it's 99.9. Still, though, you can go into Valor Cup. You can piss off a lot of teams in Valor Cup if you have Vengeance on, and you guard, and you have element resistance, and you seal 3 of the big-time, stat buffs, right? And then you just die. It's not a turn 3 team by any means. It'll be a turn 5 because Vengeance only kicks in after turn 5. But if you can turtle your way to victory, it's still a victory, right? That's it. That's all you need. And then you come over here to all the free-to-play options. You put Veldora on, Orb Changer, Green Buffer. You put 4-star Isis on, Orb Changer, Green Buffer. You put Trya on here, double Orb Changer. Both skills are Orb Changing. And then you put Octagram Guy, wherever he is, and you can stun, which means they really can't hurt you. Or they can't, nerf the Vengeance off of them or something like that. This team only needs 2 of the meta characters to completely annihilate the entire game. Is it accessible? Yeah, they put these units on as bait for most banners now. They haven't been rerun officially, but they are featured heavily now. Is it easy to use? Yeah, it's probably the most brain dead team you can think of. You stack Vengeance, you orb change into greens, and you hit Velzard, and then you just wait for 5 to 8 to 20 different turns, right? And you will eventually kill them, and you will most likely not die. You might take some damage here and there, but I mean, you could take Isis off, and you could put Trainee on here for some heals, and her ult resistance if you have her skill fused. So then you're really not in danger. Is it viable for all game events? Oh, most certainly. It's maybe not the best team, but it'll win. Accessibility, like I said, they've been featured a lot. Individual unit strength is where this team kind of takes a nosedive because, again, Veldora and Shuna are... They really don't exist on this team. Like, whenever you talk about Vengeance, it's never, oh, yeah, Veldora and Shuna are there. No, it's Raphael and Velzard, and who else is on the team? That's the kind of thing you get. So, these two are awful. They have very, very, very niche uses, but the team is carried by Velzard, Raphael, and in his own way, Yom. But I think that the power of these three characters vastly outweighs the negligence of these two, and so it's still a very strong team. And it means that there's less units that you need to summon for to get this team operational, right? Visions of Coleus or Exalted Champion, like, you kind of want Guy, and you kind of want Millen, and you kind of want the Masked Hero. Coleus, you kind of want these three characters and Lumi. She's free. You don't really need Rimuru because there's other options, but like you kind of need these three to do the most damage, right? New Year's Blessing, you kind of need all four of them. The idols, you literally need a team full of idols. This team, you could literally have 2 characters from the meta, 2 summonable characters, and it will clear you the entire game. So, and outside support, Orb Changers. That's all you need. Orb Changers, a green buffer. Veldora or Isis, bring them. Does not matter. This team is dumb, and they are still trying to correct the meta to this day, because this team came out in late August of last year. And it's almost August of this year. You know, it's the 27th. We're about to get the live stream later tonight for what this next meta is going to be right here. And Vengeance still runs over everything. It's just such a broken team. It's so glue-eatery. It's so brain-dead. But no one can ever deny that it will win you the game. So that is why it takes the #1 spot in the top 5 teams. So, I know this is a long video. If you're still here, congratulations. Thank you for watching and listening to my stupid opinions. Do you agree with this list? I could hear arguments for moving, like these 3 around right here. I could hear arguments for moving them down to like 5 because you can't get them anymore. That's fine. But I think in my 1,000 plus days of playing this game, these are the top 5 teams to release. And some of it may be recency bias, Exalted Champion, but I put them at 5. Primal Demons, I could hear something about them. Who else? The Commander meta, yeah, sure, I could hear stuff about them too. But honestly, I'm pretty confident in this list. But again, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But that's it for me, guys. Take it easy, and I'll see you all later.